We're from San Bernardino area, so.
Yep, I'm San Bernardino.
I'm from South LA to see you. Yeah, you got a prime.
Local 909. Big Game James.
What's up, man? You good? You good? What's going on?
Too much, man. How are you?
Good.
No. Yeah, because I'll have to slow it down.
Oh, yeah.
The next thing. It sounds very muffled.
What time's the 6 o'clock?
Oh, yeah, because you go back.
Yeah, we the talk back.
It's all right.
Ice cream party.
Yeah, you're good. Absorb the chair. Absorb the chair. Yeah. These guys are going to be doing all the work. Right? Yeah, yeah. Jacob Gillespie and all those guys, yeah.
You got your pen, James? Just get it. We'll do this real fast. No, I got one right here. It's black, too.
That's huge.
Right? I think so.
Some of these jobs are crime scenes.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, oh, 1:30.
I can always talk to Phil.
Well, remember, we signed it. Just get you a cup of coffee.
That will.
For what, public safety?
Oh, yes, yeah.
When do you do it?
Tomorrow.
Uh-oh, what is it?
Signal.
Right. There's a third row center.
Hello, how are you, Julie?
All right, Senator.
Good evening, and this is a very good evening. We're here today to celebrate the passage of SB 131 and AB 130, two really transformational bills that will put California on a strong path to get things done. And when you look at the political dynamic in the country today, there's deep, deep frustration about whether government is actually able to work to meet the needs of people, to make life more affordable for people, to allow people to survive and thrive, raise families, and so forth. And that frustration and the perceived failures, sometimes real failures by government, whether around housing or childcare or energy or so many other critical needs, can lead people into a certain political space. And we saw that happen in the last election, where it opens the door for people to come in and make all sorts of claims and get elected. And it is so critically important for California to show that we can get things done to make people's lives better and more affordable. And that's what these bills are about, to make it easier and faster to build more homes, to build childcare, to build food banks, to build so many health centers, so many of the things that people need to survive and thrive, and to advance California's economy, including with advanced manufacturing, which is so important in terms of building and expanding our great economy and creating jobs in a sustainable way. And with these bills, not only did we advance each of these needs, but we did something very difficult. We reformed and modernized CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, which is an incredibly important law, a law that most people have never heard of, but that touches everyone's daily life in California and affects the way that all levels of government function, and that does a lot of good in protecting the environment and protecting communities, but also at times has been abused and has been used to obstruct things like housing and clean energy and other needs of our state. And so today we took a huge step forward with these two bills. I want to thank our leadership, both the pro tem and the speaker, as well as Governor Newsom for their leadership. And it is now my great honor to bring up my partner. We're sort of brain merged in a lot of ways. Assemblymember Buffy Wick, things like housing and clean energy and other needs of our state. And so today we took a huge step forward with these two bills. I want to thank our leadership, both the pro tem and the speaker, as well as Governor Newsom for their leadership. And it is now my great honor to bring up my partner. We're sort of brain merged in a lot of ways. Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, who is just a force of nature, and we feed off of each other and lift each other up when we're down. And I'm so grateful for her leadership. So, Assemblymember Wicks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here today with this illustrious group. I want to thank Senator Wiener for his stalwart commitment and dedication since the second he got here to building more housing. I definitely stand on his shoulders, the shoulders of a giant. So thank you, Scott. I want to obviously thank the governor, who just put a ton of skin in the game on this issue. I remember standing here, I don't know what it was, 3 months ago, and Ashley asked, well, the governor could force this, couldn't he? You know, and we knew the governor would do that because he is ready to make change, structural change on an issue that has been such an impediment for us in housing. Obviously, we wouldn't have been able to do any of this without Speaker Rivas, who's just been such a tremendous ally. We came in together since day one pushing on this issue. And Pro Tem Mike McGuire, wherever he's at. Where are you? There you are. He's back there. For ushering your Senate colleagues to support this as well. So a huge gratitude to the leadership across the board. And what I think you saw today is leadership in the Assembly, in the Senate, and the governor saying, enough is enough. We're ready to take courageous votes, courageous action to solve one of the most vexing problems in our state. The cost of housing is outrageous. It is too damn hard to build housing and all the other things that we care about. And today we took affirmative action to say we are ready. We told the world we are ready to be open for business, the business of building housing, that is what we need to do in the state of California, housing at all income levels, low income subsidized housing, market rate housing, missing middle housing. And what we voted on today in AB 130 was a clean CEQA exemption for infill housing. And I think none of us thought this would have been possible when I introduced AB 609 a couple months ago. But I think the winds of change were with us on this. And really, the reason for that is because the crisis has metastasized to such a level that our constituents are demanding it. And they deserve it because they are the ones bearing the brunt of our inaction. And that day is now over. That day is over with this leadership. It's over with the leadership of the Carpenters Union, who has stood with us side by side on this day in and day out, pushing for more change, and the enforcement mechanisms that we put in that bill to make sure that we're holding unscrupulous developers accountable, which is a critical piece of this. And it is with us with the whole coalition of the Yes in My Backyard, saying no housing in my community is no longer state sanctioned. That is not allowed anymore in the state of California. So very honored to be here working with folks. We had many conversations under the leadership of Assemblymember Ramos around the tribal consultation piece. He has been such a leader for us in the Assembly on this and many other issues as it pertains to our tribes. And so great gratitude for his work. And I know that will continue in the months and years ahead, serving with him to make sure that our Native American community is fully represented in these conversations, which is so critical. So just very happy to be here. You're going to hear from a lot of speakers today. I am very honored to introduce, where's he at? He's over there. Come up here, Jay. My brother from another mother, Jay Bradshaw. Thank you, the Carpenters Union, for being so fantastic.
Thanks, Buffy. Thank you, Buffy, very much. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I feel like we put the band back together. We've been here before. Fantastic budget, boss. Appreciate it. But focusing on the housing issue and a big step forward with AB 130. Again, Jay Bradshaw, representing the NorCal Carpenters Union, speaking on behalf of the California Conference of Carpenters. with Sean behind me, president of the Western States Regional Council. That's 80,000 plus hardworking men and women in the Carpenters Union in our state, mission-driven. For the working class in general, I would say, and for those suffering in our state, and for our membership, certainly, and any workers, housing is the number one obstacle and issue and threat to the security of working families' lives. The reason I say I feel like put the band back together is we have been mission-driven at the Carpenters from the top all the way to our hundreds and hundreds of members who've marched in this Capitol over the last 3 years to push for solution, to blow through obstacles, and to break down politically motivated barriers that forget about the majority of Californians, which is the working class. No secret that there's a housing crisis and challenge, but with the passage of AB 130, it has the strongest labor enforcement language, period, in our state. For the first time, it brings liability, not just to criminal contractors, but to those that retain them and use them to drive down the conditions of the most exploited workers in our state in the residential construction industry. 300,000 workers unrepresented in housing construction in our state at a minimum. Some of them are subject to labor trafficking, cash pay, and threats every day. Our brothers and sisters to the south in SoCal have film literally of 9 and 11-year-olds working drywall scrap outs in residential projects in the area of Los Angeles. That's outrageous. Without a doubt, unabashed, the Carpenters, speaking on behalf of the Carpenters Union today, this is a pro-housing production bill. It is a pro-worker bill. It'll help us bring justice in any of those that will join us in those nights and weekends talking to those workers on those job sites to pull them up and in to get justice and housing productions. Thank you, Governor, because housing is the number one thing creating every social challenge that our membership faces and workers face across the board. Without a doubt, there's more to do. But I will say to the brave leaders, also recognizing our speaker and our pro tem, to get this done, it's a major step forward. And we are so honored to be a part of it. Count us shoulder to shoulder with anyone who will continue to drive to pull those workers up and in as they should be, to support union labor and protect that, but to make sure that union labor should be held to account to represent all workers and put skin in the game. And we would love to have them next to us as we're out there the nights and weekends and holding those criminals to account with the help of our Attorney General and local district attorneys. This is a huge step forward. We're very excited and honored to be here. Speaking of housing and champions, it is my honor to introduce my friend and a real housing champion, Secretary Moss. Come on up, sister. Thank you.
All right, well, good evening. How are we doing? Today is a celebration. I don't hear celebratory energy in the room. My name is Tamika Moss, and I serve as the Secretary of our Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for Governor Newsom. And this is what partnership and leadership looks like. As someone who's been working more than 25 years in the state of California on these issues, this is exactly what I want to see from my government. I want to see our legislature, our governor, our citizens demanding the kind of housing outcomes that our state deserves. And as one of the implementing agencies who will be implementing this transformative package of bills, it is such an incredible honor to continue to build on the leadership. This is not new, y'all. We've been working at this since this governor came into office. This legislature has been pushing the envelope. This one here in the pink, can we talk about it? For years to address this crisis with urgency, accountability, and the responsibility that we have to make sure that everyone in California has a place to call home. This is a critical step to that process. And I just, what's exciting to me about this is that we are talking about housing, cutting the red tape, getting out of the way to help local jurisdictions not only be accountable for delivering housing, but making it easier for them to say yes to housing. And so it is my honor to be able to be up here with this illustrative group, but also just to know that you have committed, dedicated public servants who are ready to take up the mantle, get this stuff implemented, and get housing built. So thank you so much for your leadership, colleagues. I can't tell you how grateful I am, and it's my distinct honor to introduce Speaker Rivas.
I certainly appreciate those words and the message from Secretary Moss, and appreciate all the work you do. And at the start of this year, we set out on a bold new path with one urgent goal: to make California more affordable and to expand opportunity for everyone who calls California home. And we focused on building more housing, building it now, and with urgency. And as I reminded my colleagues just a moment ago on the Assembly floor, at the start of this year, I said very, very clearly, affordable, decent housing is the civil rights struggle of our time here in California. And today we take a transformative step forward in that fight. And California's working families, our teachers, nurses, police officers, firefighters, housekeepers, chefs, public workers, everyone who keeps our communities thriving, they deserve to live near their jobs in the places that they call home. But for decades, our policies made that harder. Housing became too expensive, too slow to build, too tangled in bureaucracy. The result, a shortfall of 2.5 million homes. And that's just not a number, it's a hardship felt every single day by Californians forced into long commutes or pushed out of the neighborhoods that they grew up in. It's reality. And look, I'm a living example of what access to affordable housing can do. When my family moved out of the tract of farm worker housing that I grew up in Piscinas, about 3 hours south of here, where my family had lived there for some decades, since the 60s. When we moved into our first home in the small city of Hollister, it's a home that my grandmother and mom still live in right now. It changed everything. It was transformative for our lives. That home, it gave us stability. It opened the door to opportunity. Opportunity, that's what we want for every child in California, to have that same chance in 2025. With Assembly Bill 130, we're changing course. This landmark reform, it goes into effect immediately. It cuts approval times. It removes needless some delays, protects our environment, and it gets homes built now with urgency, all without new costs to our state, which I know the governor appreciates very much. California will always be at the vanguard of environmental protections, but we also must be honest with ourselves. Too often, CEQA has been used to stop housing, to block smart infill housing, housing that needs to achieve environmental goals. That irony, that was never the law's purpose. The road to our housing crisis was paved with the best intentions. The solutions that we are delivering today, this evening, they are long overdue. This is a seminal shift in how California builds new homes for all of our residents. And this kind of significant change, it didn't happen alone. It took a strong partnership, as has been mentioned. We worked together, Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, our budget chair, Mr. Jesse Gabriel, Assemblymember Ramos, Assemblymember Nick Schultz, Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, our Assembly Democrats who passed this legislation with bipartisan support. Pro Tem McGuire, our colleagues in the Senate, and of course, our governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. These reforms are backed by a supermajority of Californians. I can't emphasize that enough, because they know what we know. More housing means more affordable housing. And that's how we keep California equitable, livable, and strong. And with that, I want to invite my partner, State Senate Pro Tem Mike McGuire.
Thank you so much, Speaker Rivas, and I apologize. I've been fighting a cold, so if I start coughing, Buffy Wicks is going to step back. So I do apologize. I want to take a moment to say thank you. You know, there's a lot said about politics and how ugly it is across this nation, but this is what teamwork looks like. Putting aside politics and putting aside our differences and putting people first. I want to say thank you so much to Speaker Rivas for his hard work, to his caucus, to Ms. Wicks, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Schultz, Mr. Bryan, and the entire Assembly Democratic Caucus. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge our budget chair, Senator Weiner, who has been tenacious in his fight for housing, not just here, but on the Board of Supervisors. And he, along with Ms. Wicks, aren't afraid to take on tough stuff. I want to say thank you. I also want to acknowledge Senator Wahab, Dr. Wahab, for your work on SB 681 that is now moving here to the governor's desk. Grateful for your leadership and your work on housing in the state Senate. And I also want to say thank you to the governor. The governor has been very clear. Times are tough in this nation. But what we can't do is back away from our values in California. So, Governor, thank you for your leadership on making sure this is a priority, not just for us, but 40 million Californians. We had to make some tough decisions this year, but as I said, when is crafting a budget for the fourth largest economy in the world ever easy? This year's budget does put people first. I'd like to talk about why we all voted yes today. You know, it's no secret that we have our challenges right here in the Golden State. And one of the biggest challenges we face for decades is the shortage of affordable housing. And for some, I get it. This is not an easy vote. Anytime we do big things in this building, anytime we do things worth doing in life, it's hard. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to so many in the Senate and the Assembly who stretched to be able to get these bills across the desk to the governor. But here's why it's so important. We are living in a crisis that's priced out working families, strained our communities, made it harder for people to be able to live where they work. And we all know housing at every level in the state of California is the foundation of a healthy economy. And without it, nothing else works. And in recent years, we have made significant progress in housing, making large investments and critical strides to boost homeownership and increase housing stock. And this year's budget backs up that progress with action, investing nearly $1 billion in affordable housing and homelessness. And I want to say thank you to the leaders who are up here now for their hard work. But what we also know is that we have a lot more work to do to help folks live the American dream. And for decades, hardworking families have had to make tough choices in the state of California to scrape by, to keep the lights on, or put money towards the roof over their head. And we can't just talk about it. We need to move, and that's exactly what happened here today. California Democrats have advanced a spending plan, a housing plan, and an economic development plan in these two bills that will develop housing at a scale not seen in decades and continue to help grow our fourth largest economy. These four bills, they're bold, they're forward-thinking, and it's the solutions that we need to be able to cut costs and delays and streamline approval processes to get housing projects off the ground along with important economic development projects. I'm going to end it right here with this. And I don't talk a lot about it. I start getting a little emotional, but my mom and I struggled growing up. Said this on the floor. And at the end of the day, if you see struggle as a kid, you want to fix it as an adult. And that's what this investment means. It's helping a generation of kids, ensuring that they have housing. And the California dream, it starts at home. And it's more important now than ever to fulfill our promises and put that dream within reach of millions of Californians. This budget, it's not about politics. It's about people. It's about uplifting our communities, growing our economy, and giving Californians a fair shot. Because in California, we stand strong for working families. We take on big challenges with bold solutions. And those who win are everyday Californians. And again, we would not be here without the gentleman to my right. And we do need to take a moment to acknowledge Governor Gavin Newsom for his leadership, his vision in getting the job done. if you could please join me, and let's welcome him to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for both leading with values and putting a human face on this moment. I want to thank Jay as well. Thank you to the Carpenters, as you said, putting the gang back together. I think this is third of the last 4 years we've been together signing landmark housing reforms, and that simply would not have happened without the Carpenters, not just the Northern California Carpenters led by Jay, but the remarkable leadership of Doug McCarran, who's really asserted himself in very powerful and meaningful ways and have had the back of a process, knowing that at the end of the day, we'd have the back of workers. And so I just want to thank all of you for being here on behalf of the Carpenters, because in so many ways we wouldn't be here without you. Before I wax on about the person to my left and the right, I want to just briefly make a few observations. In so many ways, we've struggled over the course of the last many decades to reform our housing rules and regulations. That began to change, at least from my perspective, in a meaningful way in 2017, 2018, where you started to see a series of reforms advanced by Senator Atkins, Senator Skinner, many other leaders in the Assembly and the Senate. We saw that leadership expand and grow with the extraordinary dynamism of Senator Weiner and his commitment and resolve to this issue, and Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks. Their resolve, their commitment to continue to do more is demonstrably and foundationally the reason that I can lay claim to having the privilege of affixing my signature to these particular bills today. Their tenacity has led to this moment, supported by those you see around me, and they're called to do more and be better. We recognize in California, as the Senator was saying, as he opened up the conversation today, the abuses of the CEQA process. I recall those abuses intimately as a member of the County Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, trying to expand bike lanes in San Francisco, only to see CEQA used against expanding environmental bike lanes in the city and county of San Francisco. That was not what I think CEQA was intended for. We've seen this abuse over and over again. We've fallen prey to litigation as a strategy, as delay as a strategy. And as a consequence of all of that, we have too much demand chasing too little supply. It's not complicated. This is Econ 101, supply-demand imbalance. I've said it before, I'll repeat it. This issue of housing explains more things in more ways on more days than any other issue to explain the challenges and the plight of so many Californians. So many of the challenges that ail us can be connected back to this issue. Unless we address this issue head on, we'll continue to be vexed by so many of these challenges as it relates to the challenges of the middle class and working folks, the issues of what's happening on our streets, in sidewalks. All of these things are foundationally and fundamentally connected. So that's why today is a big deal. This is, and I can humbly say this, as someone who's been a student of this and a practitioner of sorts in the last 6+ years, the most consequential housing reform that we've seen in modern history in the state of California. Long overdue, absolutely. This budget that is connected to that is a budget that builds. And it is a point of pride to be able to advance these bills and what are promoted and promised. It's not just a housing package. It's also about infrastructure. It's also about the high-speed rail. Senator Weiner mentioned it's about child care facilities, about health care facilities. It's about broadband in the last mile, not just the middle mile. It's about getting things done. It's not just about homeowners that was referenced. It's also about renters, more than doubling the rent tax credit, almost 4xing it for those with dependency. Significant increase to the renters tax credit. It's about reforming permitting, Coastal Commission, getting in line again, the abuses that we've seen there with most other state agencies. Across the board, the spectrum of reforms that are in these two bills that I'm about to sign are transformative. And so I want to, again, just thank everybody for being here, and the Speaker and his commitment and resolve for being there throughout this process, being there late at night. I can attest to that. I think turns out you were in the room when I was complimenting you, thank God, with the Speaker, to the Senate for stewarding this process, for allowing us to indulge in an extractive process of sorts. I'm not naive. I said this is a budget that builds because this is linked to the budget. Now, I may have signed a budget bill on Friday, but it means nothing unless these bills are signed tonight. And so that's why I want to extend one final point, and that's gratitude and appreciation to the leaders allowing for this process. To the Speaker and the Pro Tem, I am deeply mindful of what you must have gone through in terms of the quiet commentary. I've heard some publicly, but I can't imagine the quiet commentary from your members about this process. I heard a little bit at it on the floor today. And I recognize that. But this was too urgent. This was too important to play chance. It was too urgent, too important to allow the process to unfold as it has for the last generation, invariably falling prey to all kinds of pratfall. And I was too concerned that that would indeed occur again if we allowed this process to unfold in the traditional way. So I'm deeply mindful of what was asked of you and deeply grateful. The Senator, Assembly members, thank you for that indulgence as well. And thank you for your contributions as co-authors of this effort, for all of the nuances and amendments and reforms that are reflected in your authorship and your stewardship. To Miles, thank you. To the Ledge team for going toe-to-toe on VMT. Miles today. I was watching. To Christine Herrera, who's in absentia, Christine was masterful throughout this process. To former staffers that have been pounding me, Jason Elliott and others, on this process for some time. To the mayors out there that said, look, you're going to sue us with this housing accountability team. Give us the tools to get into compliance with the housing element. Give us the tools to meet our RHNA goals. To the NIMBY movement that's now being replaced by the YIMBY movement, go YIMBYs. Thank you for your abundant mindset. It's a plug to Ezra. And it really is about abundance. And to the movement that they represent, which I think was reflected in the comments made a moment ago about getting big stuff done. The world we invented has been competing against us. We have got to perform. And if we can't address this issue, we're going to lose trust. And that's just the truth. And so this is so much bigger in many ways than the issue itself. It is about the reputation of not just Sacramento and legislative leadership and executive leadership, but the reputation of the state of California. And so our state of mind has been resolved, and with gratitude and deep respect to the extraordinary leaders, capital L leadership, assembled here today, I thank you, and it is my pleasure to sign these two important bills. Unless you have any objections.
No, please sign.
Which one's yours?
That's the assembly one.
This is you're interested in that one?
Yeah.
It's thicker. I'll sign it.
We're a rowdier bunch.
You are a rowdier bunch. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. I'm surprised this one's not as thick as that one with all the amendments.
Short and sweet. Short and sweet.
It's a simple bill.
And with that, we're here to answer any questions. I know it's late, and we'll have another chance tomorrow as well. I have a press conference about 40 minutes away on topics perhaps that are not necessarily germane to this. Please, anyone.
I have a logistical question. There was some confusion between the two houses. I asked consultants today. There's a section of SB 131, the housing bill that you wanted, and the California Business Roundtable is circulating this letter that says SB resolution that says that oil and gas infrastructure are not part of the rezoning component. Is that true? Are new homes with gas hookups not?
I'm going to let the senator speak because he leaned
for
in.
131.
131.
Yeah, so when we introduced the 131, it was originally SB 607 to make some reforms and modernizations to CEQA. We decided that we did not want that to facilitate fossil fuel extraction. Fossil fuels are not the future. Clean energy is, and so, and in fact, we saw the oil industry sue the city of LA under CEQA when LA decided to phase out oil extraction. And so when we talk about CEQA being abused for non-environmental purposes, that was like one of the poster children. And so the bill did not apply to fossil fuel. But it's not about hookups.
Okay, but it's oil and gas facilities.
Yeah, so they can't use this if they're going to build a new oil refinery or a new oil field. They cannot.
So this is inaccurate, what they're saying.
Yes, that's inaccurate.
May not be the first time. That's why I stepped aside for that editorial comment. Well, not from my perspective, as long as I'm here. Look, I've had the privilege of assigning my signature to 42 CEQA reform bills. I think reforming, modernizing CEQA is incredibly important. That said, eliminating it, no. I believe in sort of foundational core tenets process, same with NEPA. But the abuses, time to delivery, addressing urgency of need, addressing the imperative of transitioning to a low-carbon, green growth future and changing the way we produce and consume energy, addressing the issue of the housing crisis and affordability. I absolutely find that there are areas where we can advance some common sense reform that can bring people together and not divide folks. But from my perspective, no, I would not sign any bill to eliminate foundationally the core tenets of CEQA. Well, I'm open to argument, interested in evidence. As I said, 42 proof points of that in the past. But this is the most comprehensive. This is the most foundational. This is the most common sense as well. This has been the holy grail for the housing movement for decades now. Just getting to this point on infill. This is the stuff, as a former mayor, boy, I only wish we had. By the way, as a future ex-governor, you're welcome to the next governor of California. Please remember that when they announce record-breaking housing starts into the future. Laurel?
That was actually just where I was heading, was just kind of what was different now.
These folks to my left and right, their tenacity, their willingness. Look, we had private conversations. If I have your back in this process, would you willing to have my back as it relates to sort of challenging the process? It was a lot at stake. $321 billion, in fact. It's the budget that now formally and officially is passed in the state. And as was said, the reputation of the fourth largest economy in the world. And so that was an important commitment that was made, and on the basis of a relationship that we've had with these folks. And that relationship extended to the pro tem and the speaker, and the relationship of trust that we have in terms of their commitment to steward this process and do it in a fair-minded way. So you combine that sort of anchor of those four leaders and the wisdom of their members that are assembled here, the backing of the Carpenters that are willing to go to bat on behalf of working folks and had a reputation for delivering. Combination of all those factors, and yes, a more abundant mindset, literally and figuratively, as it relates to this issue and not wanting to play. I don't think we've been playing small ball. I want to be careful there, but not playing in the margins as it relates to incremental reforms. We needed to go bold and big on this Holy Grail reform.
But what about in the larger
No, I mean, this is just getting stuff done. I mean, it's just, we've had this mindset for years. We've been, again, the last 6 years, no one's been dormant. The policymakers have been advancing significant reforms across the spectrum on housing and homelessness. It wasn't a priority for the course of decades, many, many different administrations. So we've been at this. I think it's a flywheel. It's momentum. Again, just building coalitions. The YIMBY movement has grown and grown and grown. Just a recognition. You can't continue to do what you've done. You'll get what you've got. And for these cities, I think the day I came here, we totally changed things with the first announcement, which was suing or putting on notice 46 cities in this state. Putting on notice as they were out of their housing compliant elements, suing Huntington Beach, meeting and negotiating with 46 others in Northern California and Southern California, creating the new housing and accountability unit with the leadership that you see up here, funding that unit, now incorporating homelessness into it. The $1 billion that the Pro Tem mentioned today, that's another component part, increasing our tax credit program, increasing our supports for home ownership, first-time home buyers. Those were not priorities in the past. So we've had a more abundant mindset. We were missing, however, this foundational component.
That leads me to the question. How would this distribution of building housing,
Well, here's the great thing. It's bottom up, not top down. And there is another holy grail. As a former mayor, it's sacrosanct, and localism will be determinative in those questions. But we won't have the abuses of doing zoning at the local level and then project investment at the local level that have to go through a redundant process of extended the CEQA analysis. And so local control in that respect within the frameworks of local leadership. But again, with the ability now to move, not even in an expedited timeline, the 270-day judicial process, which has been incredibly effective at Sites Dam, incredibly effective with one of the largest solar and battery projects in the world, second proof point of its effectiveness. This is significantly more impactful, but local government will make that determination. You guys all talk about that.
Just speak to what we could see in the near future on this.
Well,
2.5 million.
Yes, exactly. As many as possible. I mean, a couple things. What we see is that when we pass housing laws and then truly remove all the loopholes, because sometimes when you pass a law, most cities do their very best to comply. I want to be clear. I don't want to broad brush, but the cities that don't want to comply are very ingenious at finding loopholes, and then we have to close them. If you look at what happened with ADUs, accessory dwelling units, it was 2015-16 that the legislature really started putting teeth into that law. It took a good 5-6 years for ADU production to really ramp up. It takes a while for the market to adjust. Of course, the last 5 years, we've had a pandemic, a supply chain disaster, and now super high interest rates. But what we've seen is that it takes some time, but then the laws really start to take off. And so at some point, interest rates, I pray, will come down. And to me, the goal is set up the right structure for the long term. This isn't about what's going to happen necessarily in the next year or 3 years. It's about decades to come. And when the economic conditions are right to build a ton of housing, that we want to make sure that the structure is there to facilitate that.
And I'll just add to that, I think part of our job also as lawmakers is to doggedly follow these laws to see if they're actually being implemented the right way and if they're being effective. And a lot of what I've done, and many of us have sort of tracked as we've done these streamlining stuff, what's working and what's not working, how can we make sure it's effective? And that's honestly why we landed here today, right? We've gone at these CEQA reforms in prior years, but what we've realized is we really need this sort of broader infill exemption. So at least while I'm in the legislature, it's tracking and seeing how effective are these things being. Because we don't want to sit here and ram our head against the wall in the politics and then have nothing to show for it, right? Our job is to deliver for our constituents and making sure that we're actually doing what we're saying we're doing when you hear us talk about how great this is going to be. So it is our job to then follow it all the way down to make sure it's actually being implemented in the way that we hope it will be.
I was joking about the 2.5 million, but I'm not. It's legally binding on ARENA. And it's meaningful because we mean business as it relates to requiring and enforcing, which has component parts from the builder's remedy to broader issues as it relates to future funding which the state is now stipulating with more enforcement capacity, including now on homelessness. One of the reforms, and thank you to the legislature, I appreciate on encampment prioritization, the ability to redirect money as it relates to the HAP funding, which is the new round of money going to the cities and counties and these COCs, these regional bodies, and making sure they're in compliance with their housing element. They're not in compliance, no money. So all these things are connected. So carrots and sticks in ways we haven't seen in the past. I hope not to have to do this again. I just seen unless you appreciate that process. I'm happy to get all of it done. In fact, in a budget, but no. Look, I'm not trying to create any precedent here. I just think we have an unprecedented crisis of affordability in this state, and it's just growing. I mean, look, forgive me. You saw the pro tem and speaker. I'll end as I began. Very emotionally attached to this reality. I can extend the same with a sister who quite literally lived in a cutout of the hallway because we didn't have more than one bedroom where I slept on the couch. With a mom who was working almost 3 jobs, 2.5 jobs, and renting, and then rented out the spare bedroom for most of my childhood. The emotional attachment to the issue of affordability is real and raw, and for too many people. And so I think this issue deserved, if not a precedent, to challenge perhaps at least one off a precedent. They're working on that, right?
Would you support? Yeah, there's a bill that could do that.
They're working on that. I'll leave it at that. I'm intimately familiar with the conversations around that and have great confidence that we'll achieve our stated goals. I have great confidence. I've never, you cannot quote me, saying I would sign a bill that I haven't read, or at least analyzed in detail before that. But I'm confident that we'll achieve the goal as stated.
Governor,
Well, it's you. I don't know that you can be a superintendent or even do anything without being able to multitask. I can get in the weeds if you'd like on some of the component parts of the bill, the $233 million to add to the $2.1 billion to finish out the job on pre-K for all. The work we're doing with an additional $60 million to finish out universal meals, the $525.9 million to finish out after school and summer school for all. I say all this not to impress you, but to impress upon you an appetite for getting in the weeds and policy making. So that includes housing, always has, homelessness, point of pride. And again, I just refer you back to my first State of the State, where we prioritized these issues, and a subsequent State of the State where we extended the entire focus on the issue of housing and homelessness. So our ability not to get distracted on that, I think has been relatively consistent. So, but I'm very proud of my staff for their handling and stewardship. Why? There's 2,000 bills, including the one that was just referenced. I have an unbelievable team, and I empower Tamika to do good work. I have great trust and confidence. So by definition, that's the only way anyone can govern, particularly a state larger than 21 state populations combined. But I assure you, there's a reason I was giving Miles a hard time about Senator Grove's conversation back and forth. I tend to enjoy this as well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.